Rosano was the noble daughter of a duke in the Biantech Empire. As her father's powerful daughter, she was known as a delicate flower teetering on a cliff. But the strict duke held her fate in his hands, marrying her off against her will. On the day she felt worst of all, her whole world flipped upside down. Just then, a man stormed into her room, annoyed by her attitude. His Majesty, Dmitry Rosano, Duke of the Rosano Empire. When Leah saw her dad, she let out a heavy sigh and dropped to her knees. She was worried her husband might take a second wife. That's what Dmitry heard from the nanny. Lady Rosano caught wind of rumors. Emperor Zakador had 5 wives. Hearing this, the Duke shouted at the top of his lungs. Her fiancé was nothing but a no-good lazy bum. The second Leah realized the next emperor would kill her husband, her tears couldn't be stopped. Rumors said any Zakador prince who didn't become emperor died anyway. They said ladies marrying into the Zakador royal family were playing with fire. Elena was sobbing, terrified to go to Zakador by her father's orders. But her dad swore the contract only allowed for 1 wife. Leah was already panicking, begging her dad not to send her there. She really didn't want to go. Her father said she'd been living like royalty all this time, just because she was a duke's daughter. But today was about repaying him, so Dmitry snapped, "Cut the drama already!" Poor Leah had no choice but to roll her eyes and give in to her stubborn old man. Soon, a huge event went down in the suburbs, and every settler in town turned up. The whole place was dripping with flowers and confetti, noble dukes riding past on horseback. This was her engagement day, but the most important event of her life didn't bring her joy. Everyone thought she looked seriously classy and elegant. What a lucky prince to land this bride. But Eliana had no spark in her chest. Her eyes already swollen from all the tears. Her white dress hugged her delicate shoulders. But Lady Elena glared at her groom like he was a curse. The pale-haired guy had prepped for this. His red uniform looking sharp as hell today. Whatever was crackling between them? Definitely not love. The man stared into her eyes and whispered, "Your tears are like priceless jewels." Gorgeous Marcel Zakador couldn't look away. He'd been smitten from the moment he saw her. He cupped her hand gently. For a second, it felt like the world stopped for the two of them. Eliana arrived in a foreign kingdom for an unwanted marriage, but her heart started to warm to her husband. She fell for him while Laya was still a kid. She really grew up only when her powerless husband jumped into the fight for the imperial throne. The Empress, who'd lost her own child, adopted the 7th prince of the emperor's late 5th wife. In this power vacuum, everyone suddenly backed the 7th prince, vowing to help him claim the throne. People thought the 7th prince, blessed by fate, was the only one worthy of the throne. He came back victorious from the death trap the older princes had thrown him into. It was His Highness who got the saint's blessing and pulled the empire out of the plague. Plus, the bishop personally blessed him. Marcel figured he was just lucky, never thinking he was all that. He might have muttered about doubts, but his eyes gave away his ambitions. The palace dismissed him, but he became the real deal. A true prince. Zakador's whole dream was to be emperor, to make the whole world bow to Lee. Eliana suddenly put her husband's goals ahead of her own survival. She was ready to sacrifice her own luck so he could reach his goals. The Rosano Duchy poured a ton of cash into the 7th prince. Eliana gave up a lot just to be with her husband. Marcel crushed every obstacle with pure grit and became emperor. Miss Rosano got the empress title for her endless loyalty. Years before, the Biantech-Zakador peace shattered. Wars wrecked her life. People split. Some called her a traitor, others called her the heir princess. But Eliana never wanted to be empress, until love flipped her mind. The time came when Marcel was about to take the throne and rule as emperor. The young lady had a shot at being empress, and she thought it was her birthright. The man stared into her shaky eyes, still clueless why she'd agree. Hearing that, Lady Milady froze and lost her cool. She gasped out, "I love my husband. I want to be empress." Marcel tried to say the second wife had temple recognition and full rights, but all he heard was her saying she'd rather flee to Biantech than be his concubine. Eliana snapped, burst into tears right there. She could feel his coldness burning. Marcel pulled the young lady close to his chest and swore he loved no one but her. After that, the brave heroine achieved her goal and became Empress of Zakador. The crown came with its burdens, and that's when Eliana finally grew up. Once her husband became emperor, he was no longer bound by the polygamy ban. When the Lord decided to take another wife, Lady Eliana had no choice but to accept it. Not long after, Elizabeth, Archduke Vane's daughter, arrived at the palace. Eliana welcomed her warmly and asked her to set an example for the entire court. Now, worried about Eliana's feelings, Marcel started bringing women into the palace. Concubine rivalries flared as the emperor surrounded himself with more women. To survive, Eliana had to crush the love she'd kept hidden in her heart. And as it turned out, her husband had a hand in it. That day, Marcel lost his temper because his third wife missed the assembly. But she didn't view the sacred text inventory as cruel punishment. Besides, she began arguing it wasn't just some holy meeting. Suddenly, the Lord turned his back and muttered he was deeply disappointed. She had one job, managing the palace women. Hope that the 7th prince still loved her like he used to never really died. But old flames don't just reignite, especially not with Marcel. She vented about it, but what she heard? Men's love was fickle. His feelings were fading, and she could feel it. He hadn't visited in days. The girls told Lee to seduce the king and give him an heir. She couldn't bring herself to do something so despicable. But an heir secured the Empire's future. Her friends said it was simple. Get pregnant, even if it was just a one-night fling. On the surface, it looked easy. Just produce an heir. But harsh reality crushed Eliana's pride. The Emperor was thrilled. Suddenly, he was a regular at the palace. But when he argued with Lady or was in a bad mood, he got violent. She'd get awkward during these moments and suggest they head to the bedchamber. Marcel treated her like his mistress, pressing closer with each encounter. He'd demand she open her eyes and please him, because that's how he got what he wanted. After enduring such terrible treatment, Milady shoved him aside. Marcel heard Milady was willing to die if he were deposed for being childless. Then the Lord swung and smacked her across the face. The sting on her cheek flung her into the table from the hit. Turns out the king knew she'd stopped loving him and wanted to get pregnant. He left her in that place when everyone wanted her gone. Now she had to love him, even though her heart was hollow. At that moment, Elena felt her old love had burned out for good. But she swallowed it and did whatever he demanded. Shortly after, Flint Howard, the Northern Archduke of Biantech, stepped into the palace for a visit. Staring at his ugly mug, Milady knew this wasn't right. Behind her, Duke Rosano threatened the lady, jamming a knife to her throat like he'd snapped. Eliana figured the Duke hated her rejection of Biantech. But Flint said the Biantech Empire never wanted anything from her. Milady wasn't dumb. She'd abandoned her homeland and ended up childless to boot. After bowing, the Archduke said Biantech never meddles in other people's internal affairs. The real reason he came here? Just to bring the Empress back to her homeland. Flint Howard asked her to trust him. Then Lady could live her life freely in her own country. She wasn't expecting to hear that. She stood there, stunned, couldn't get a word out. But when she realized this was Damien Rosano's wish, she nearly passed out. Flint Howard was Crown Prince Harris's closest friend, a legendary warrior. But beneath that shining reputation, a past stained by tragedy. His grandfather, Crown Prince Alphonse, died as a kid. The throne went to Leopold. Leopold got his butt kicked in the war against Zakador, and he sent Maximilian Howard's kid, his brother's son, off as a hostage. Flint, Maximilian's legitimate son, lost his mom not long after. They left him in Rinskin. That's where he spent his whole teenage years. Everyone knew Biantech was a country where the second-born child couldn't claim the throne. Zakador made fun of Biantech's old emperor all the time, and they called Flint the failure heir. Eliana couldn't believe her ears when she heard about his plan to send her back home. When she found out it was Damien Rosano's wish, she immediately flung her teacup at the Lord. The girl started screaming. No one dared mock her like that. She realized Flint wanted to send her back to conquer Zakad. If that was the case, she'd be better off trusting the Emperor than Damien Rosano. Suddenly, Flint said he felt sorry for her. Marcel wasn't someone she could trust. The Archduke was ready to guarantee her safety, but Eliana didn't buy it. The Lord had no choice but to back off and give her space. Before leaving, he told Lady to think it over and ordered the Lord to let the girl go. The Lord planned to wait for her in the palace greenhouse at the same time 3 days later, but the heroine just snorted in response and wished him luck on his hard road ahead. Turning around, Flint promised the lady a quiet life. The terrified maid threw herself on the floor and begged her mistress to make the right choice. After vowing to help Eliana return home, she swore to follow her until the end of her days. To Lee, the reasons the maid gave in to threats were crystal clear. The heroine wouldn't let Damien Rosano control her life. Damien Rosano was Empress Eliana's twin brother. As promised, the duchy didn't hold back supporting Eliana and her husband. But when Marcel became emperor, their attitude shifted overnight. In exchange for financial support, the girl had to do whatever the family asked. Lady scrawled down military secrets and handed them to spies. In her letters, the heroine spilled every detail to Damien. Eliana knew Marcel didn't love her anymore and had forbidden her from ever touching the throne. Terrified, she begged Damien to help her get a divorce and go home. But when she pleaded for help, her brother called her crazy. He didn't see the point in blowing the family fortune just to get a divorce. Eliana trembled with fear. Her family had refused to offer her a helping hand. They'd never cared about her well-being. The heartbroken heroine, betrayed by her own family, could no longer trust them. But Howard's piercing gaze stuck with her. It bugged the hell out of her. A guy with eyes like that sticks to his promises at all costs. That night, the lady only thought about living in peace. Her thoughts were cut short by a maid who'd snuck Vivian in. As promised, Flint Howard was waiting for the Empress in the palace garden. You couldn't crack his resolve. It was like an unbreakable fortress. Patrol was coming soon, so his assistant suggested bailing. Just then, a girl in a black coat stepped into the garden. Looked like the Empress. But when her hood slipped, a white-haired girl snapped, "Her Highness ain't coming!" She said the servant's passage was clear. The Archduke could sneak through. Luna ordered a covert border crossing with fake IDs. To the assistant, it reeked of a trap, but Flint ignored him. The maid also delivered a message. Bianteca's little son had gone dark. The second Flint heard that, he froze up, like he'd turned to stone. From Her Majesty, the maid said, "Sir, come back and take the throne." That was all Eliana had to say, so the maid vanished on the spot. A big happy event happened at the palace. Miss Rosano got pregnant. Tears welled up in her eyes. The girl couldn't believe it. Now she could actually survive, and no one would overthrow her for being infertile. But it was short-lived joy. The kid was never meant to be born. In that moment, Eliana felt a crushing emptiness. Nothing worse had ever hit her. Her health suddenly collapsed, and Lady Eliana fainted, setting the court into panic. Devastated by the miscarriage, the heroine locked herself in the palace and cried for days straight. What was the point for Marcel to spend the night with her if she couldn't even carry a child? All the rumors about dethroning her were rotting her life faster than mold. The news that Empress Zakador was a bastard child turned the country into a laughingstock. People only accepted her as empress because of her noble blood. Marcel had to make a call. The empress seat couldn't be handed to some random girl. The maid said Lady Eliana wouldn't face problems if she just walked away from the throne. On top of that, Eliana had nothing left to cling to, so it was no easy decision. The maid argued life mattered more than pride, and Lady Eliana needed to survive somehow. The desperate heroine realized the traditions of Biantek were too powerful. The empress's palace ordered her to stay away, and the end was coming. A servant suddenly stormed into the room and started screaming. Eliana's breath caught when she heard the Rosano duchy in Biantek had been destroyed. The final blow, her whole family was wiped out. Now, no one knew what to do. The unbreakable strength of Rosano had fallen. Eliana was also a descendant of the Rosano duchy, and the same fate now loomed over her. Lady Eliana had had enough of everything that happened, but death was the only choice left. The emperor who arrived at her palace was unusually kind. They hadn't talked this nicely since their honeymoon. He even brewed the tea himself, and his sweetness made her heart melt. But the second she took a sip, everything shattered. The tea was poisoned. Eliana collapsed into the broken pieces. Marcel ended her luxury-filled days and promised to share her final words with everyone. The poison spread fast. She barely had strength to whisper a word. Leaning over her body, the prince admitted he shouldn't have let her near the throne. Even then, he was horrified by her ambition. But he hoped she'd give him a child. If Eliana had a son, he'd be the emperor's heir. With her eyes closed at death, the heroine struggled to understand what had gone wrong. She couldn't protect her child, and she never let go of the empress's seat. It all happened because she trusted the wrong man. The truth was, all her misfortunes started the day she married Zakador. If the heroine could go back in time, she'd fight with everything she had. In her final moments, Lady wanted nothing more than to turn back time. Eliana opened her eyes again as the sunlight from the window blinded her. The heroine woke up. Spring bloomed outside. She was 21 years old. After everything, the girl stepped into the church. Unexpectedly, the sisters approached. They'd heard she'd gotten a marriage proposal. They thought she'd said no. But that day, Eliana wore a white veil. Everyone said she'd live quietly in Rosano, basking in luxury. Girls were jealous of her, said the Duke even listened when she picked her husband. Rumors claimed her heroine's little brother was head over heels for her. Eliana's life was all about luxury, expensive dresses, jewelry, the whole 9 yards. But deep down, you could see how her father had made her the woman she was. He raised her to be conservative and decided who'd get to pluck the Rosano family's flower. Yeah, she got an education, but it was all about social graces and how to properly serve tea. She was ordered to learn just enough to mimic the ton at dinner parties. Eliana couldn't even go to the library alone. Her ladyship told her to bring her clothes to the tailor and always keep up with the latest trends. Back then, as a kid, she was clueless and thought it was great. Her years were just endless, exhausting training. She couldn't miss a single lesson, or her teacher would chew her out. That day, the nanny promised not a soul would tell the master. But that same night, the Duke's daughter got beaten for misbehaving in front of the teacher. After the brutal beatdown, her legs were all cut up and bruised. But even then, her father told her to remember this pain and hold her head high. As he looked at his broken child, he swore he wasn't angry. That's when Eliana realized she'd messed up. Even though she still didn't get why he'd beaten her, she had to beg for his forgiveness. Dimitri Rosano swore he did it all for her, never led her astray, but it was a lie. Her father was the real reason for every damn thing. The heroine never forgot, not for a second, even now, living this second life. Talk about a break! Lady Luck finally gave her a shot to fix everything. Eliana thanked the heavens and vowed never to relive a life of hell. When Dimitri Rosano strode into the palace with that stunning lady on his arm, the room went dead silent. That incredible lady was glowing, pure joy blooming like the first honeysuckle of spring. Guests recognized Elena Rosano immediately, way too young to be a bride. Her name? Unforgettable, the most noble bloom in Biantek. Lady was shocked. How could Eliana still be single past 20? As the woman said, her father vowed to protect her till her last breath. Even turned down marriage proposals. 3 girls invited that day saw her as the Duke's spoiled brat. They said a spineless little thing like her would never make it with the royal prince. But Liliana Sanders said Leah was just acting like a kid. Rumors were she kicked the Hayne family's daughter out of her tea party. She chewed out a servant who spilled wine on her at a Marquis banquet, and gave the Viscount Rotano's daughter a stern talking to. People figured if it was poison, they'd notice. But this was just Eliana's usual drama. Lately, the ladies got together for tea at Marquis for Satan's place. Lady X thanked everyone for showing up. But another guest was clearly uncomfortable with who showed up. Let's be real. Lady Hayne was not happy seeing Lady Rosano at the party. Eliana just blurted out how happy she was they finally clicked. The Hayne family's daughter lost it when she heard Leah didn't like her. She couldn't take it anymore and dropped a hint about who should hit the road. She wasn't about to blush. Lady for Satan knew how to handle these situations. With no other choice, Lady Heine had to leave. It was hard to believe high society had been talking about this for days. Eliana just stood silently on the sidelines, listening to everyone else's opinions. The heroine wasn't stupid. She held on to her spot as Empress of Zakador. She should have been sharper, wiser, or just an idiot. Lilia suddenly noticed a beautiful flower standing out of place. Years ago, Lilia was Eliana's best friend. Their father introduced them. Every time Leah cried, Lilia was the first to defend her. Stepping closer, the kind lady said the Duke was with her uncle. But she couldn't shake the feeling her friend was taken by God. That's why she kept going to the temple. At some point, Lilia went quiet and locked eyes with her. Curiosity got the better of her. She wanted to know something. She'd heard Eliana kicked Count Heine's daughter out of the tea party. The heroine blushed and said it wasn't quite like that. She said Lady Heine was unhappy with the seating, and Forsetan handled it politely. Liliana was super upset about the tone and even wanted to walk out. But it wasn't about her or the other ladies, so the heroine stopped her. Lady Rosano used to think of her as a real friend, but she found out Liliana had said she was tired of babysitting her, denying she'd said that. The girl said there was a misunderstanding. If that was true, Eliana admitted she'd been spoiled and finally got why her friend was still single. Right then, Liliana grabbed her friend and wanted to confess. She said Lady Hayne hated Leah, and you couldn't trust her. In that moment, young Rosano remembered it was Heine who spread those rumors about Liliana before. Suddenly, the girl yanked her hand back and said it was her friend who hated her. Eliana was only ready to keep being friends if Liliana apologized. Deciding to leave, the heroine promised to wait for her apology. As she left, she added that hanging out with rude girls was hurting her reputation. They didn't even know how to greet a duke's daughter. The world around the young lady was changing. This was just the beginning. Winning this verbal showdown couldn't silence the pain from the storms of her past. Spotting a servant in the hallway, Eliana asked to be taken to the lounge. The girl politely led the lady to the nearby resting room, but the male-only space was already occupied by Flint Howard and Harris Biantek. Stepping inside, the lady bowed respectfully to the prince and introduced herself. Flint was ready to clear out the lounge, but the lady refused to leave. She suddenly apologized for wasting their time and turned to walk out. But Harris Biantek couldn't let her go and rushed to stop her. The moment he bolted after her, the girl dashed out and slammed the door shut. Her sharp move made him realize the rumors about the lady changing were true. Prince Harris was the emperor's favorite younger son and sole heir. One day, news spread that 7 years ago, the prince was captured and died. Emperor Leopold immediately declared war on Zakador. The war lasted 3 years, becoming known as the 3-Year War. At the same time, Duke Rosano started searching for Emperor Leopold's illegitimate son. The heir prince everyone thought dead came back alive, having pulled off a victory in the 3-Year War, along with his cousin, who'd been held hostage in Zakador. It was totally natural he didn't like her, the Duke's daughter, but taking out his anger on her was petty, even for him. As Lady Eliana turned to leave, someone suddenly called her name. Spinning around, she saw the man asking to drop the formalities. Flint offered this as payment for his brother's rotten temper. But Eliana knew he didn't come for that. At that moment, Sir Flint handed her the earring she'd dropped inside. She expected him to laugh at such an old-school move. Still, she felt touched by the Archduke's kindness. But she just thanked him. After all, a broken hairpin could be replaced. Her only request was that he not send the broken hairpin home. If returning it would have embarrassed her, Flint heard her clearly. When Harris heard about it, he figured his brother's been played. But Flint was sure the girl didn't do it on purpose. He just wanted to return the precious item, but she refused. The Duke said it was smarter not to send that hairpin to Rosano. He didn't want to see the Duke of Rosano turn Flint into his daughter's prize. When a lady wanted to show her feelings, she'd drop something in front of the guy she liked. Then the guy would win her over by giving the thing back. Elena Rosano was already called the woman who rejected the heir prince. The Duke was certain Dmitri Rosano would start rumors the Archduke was head over heels for his daughter. Either way, Flint was better off just tossing the damn thing. When the stars came out, her father sent Leia home. Though he looked like a doting dad, deep down he feared she'd do something stupid. On the way, the knight suddenly asked her about the fight with Miss Sanders. That guy was the eyes for her father. He reported every damn step she took. Feeling no need to answer, Elena just snorted. She couldn't stand his rude behavior anymore and wondered how she'd ever put up with him before. Surprisingly, the knight suddenly flung open the carriage door and shamelessly climbed inside. The Duke's daughter was furious and ordered him out, but his duty was to protect Lady, even here in the capital. The heroine knew full well the carriage wasn't passing through the slums. In that case, she said the Lord would be better off ensuring her safety from outside. Only after those words did the jerk step out and vanish from her sight. Eliana knew exactly what she had to do to avoid repeating past mistakes. She absolutely couldn't marry the Emperor of Zakador's son. To do that, Lady had to first disappear from her father's eyes and ears. First and foremost, from the one whose name she couldn't bring herself to say out loud. After a while, the heroine finally arrived at the palace. The next morning, the maid meticulously combed Lady's hair, prepping her for the event. Eliana kept thinking about how she could quit attending those endless banquets and tea parties. Luckily, the Archduke hadn't returned her hairpin. Since her father planned to marry her off to the Zakador Empire, getting tangled up in romance rumors was risky. There was a reason the lady dropped that hairpin. The day Flint Howard showed up to take Lady back home, she remembered it crystal clear. The hand she didn't grab back then? It was a hope she clawed out of her own heart. That hope got passed to Elena, and she dove headfirst into it. She tortured herself with the hope that it had all come true in this lifetime. Then, out of nowhere, the heroine snapped at the maid to stop. She figured she'd hurt her feelings, but kept brushing anyway. Leah, furious now, flung the comb straight to the ground. A maid who doesn't follow orders? No use. Lady Rosano had her thrown out. The scared girl froze in panic, but Elena was already dragging her out by force. The old maid ran over when Lady screamed her head off. She snatched up the comb, figuring the girl messed up the brushing. Poor thing had to beg forgiveness, tears in her eyes. Her hands had been aching all week. Once things were sorted, the old mistress handed the comb back to the girl. The maid didn't even let her finish talking. That's what made Lady Rosano blow her top. She jumped up and ordered the maid to call the butler. The maids flinched at the old nanny's glare and didn't budge an inch. It looked like everyone ignored Lady Elena Rosano's orders. As soon as the servant walked in, the heroine pounced on him, furious. The guy tried to calm her down, saying the butler was busy. The fuming mistress snatched up a flower pot and smashed it to pieces. Now Eliana demanded to be taken to the butler. After meeting the butler, everything went off without a hitch. Miss Rosano fired anyone who dared cross her, which pissed off the nanny. She blamed it on them being clumsy and disloyal. Maid Milla said it was the mistress's order, so they couldn't ignore it. Butler Jonathan nodded. We had to follow orders. Eliana then ordered the head maid to stop bringing in greenhorns. Nanny Pamela got locked in house arrest for insubordination, but she'll be out soon. Pamela was in Duke Dimitri's inner circle. The main heroine had to figure out how to kick her out of the manor. The doors burst open, and Isabella stormed in without permission. A young lady, a dead ringer for Eliana, greeted her sister. Isabella noticed the way she spoke, like their mom, and barked out a laugh. She'd slapped the servants before arriving, thinking no one would call her out. The smug noblewoman even dared her sister to take a swing at her maid instead. Eliana clamped down on her urge to roll her eyes and motioned for them to sit. With flawless poise, the heroine poured a cup of piping hot tea. Her sister blinked at how dead silent she was, like it had been drilled into her. Eliana stared at Isabella and knew she was still the same person deep down. Their dad just hadn't expected her to act like Lee, that's all. Isn't it obvious? Isabella's debut was scheduled for the week after next. Eliana stiffened when she realized Isabella already knew about Pamela's house arrest. Truth be told, Isabella thought that crone was a menace too. But she knew her sister wanted Pamela gone for good, so she was ready to help. It was clear Dad wouldn't let this slide. He already knew everything for sure. Either way, Eliana wanted to hear how her sister planned to help. Tomorrow at the Imperial Palace banquet, Lady Eliana was supposed to handle the Marquise's son. Isabella told her that Dad had picked the guy as her husband-to-be. Now, the heroine's goal was to make him propose to her. When she heard this, Eliana refused help, but her sister begged her to assist. She didn't want to marry the Marquise's son and asked her sister to dance with him once. Even though the girls weren't close, Eliana knew her sister never wasted words. Lady Eliana decided to help her out, but she didn't know if the guy would actually say yes after just one dance. But when the Marquise's son caught sight of the young beauty, he was totally smitten by her charm. Looks like he was a real fool to fall for such a wild plan. If he was a decent guy, Lady Eliana would have married him before they even mentioned the wedding. At one point, Eliana turned and spotted Flint Howard standing behind her. After that, Lady Eliana started dancing even more enthusiastically with her partner. They twirled and laughed all through the ballroom, like they were made for each other. People couldn't help but notice Miss Rosano was dancing up a storm with the guys. She started getting a ton of dance requests. Guys were lined up around the block. Right then, Milady decided Isabel would have to pay dearly for this. As night fell, Lady Rosano returned to her chambers, but at the entrance, Nanny Pamela was waiting, asking if she'd arrived on time. That bugged Elena. She hadn't lifted house arrest yet. Smirking slyly, Pamela said she couldn't just leave her ladyship hanging. Turns out, it was the father's orders. Only Pamela could polish her into perfection. As she brushed her hair, Lady Rosano noticed the roots starting to show. She warned that everyone would question her whole background if that dull color peeked through. Elena was beyond confused. Why'd she end up with hair like that? Pamela said the poor kid was born with a pigment deficiency. It was a medical condition. Elena trusted her. Her whole world was whatever Pamela wore. Soon, Elena got a letter that flipped everything upside down. It was a royal missive from Her Majesty, Empress of Zakador, addressed to the Duchy of Rosano in the BETRAYAL Empire. They demanded she return the magic item that could change hair color. It was the inheritance of the late Duchess, and as an illegitimate daughter, Eliana had no claim to it. The heroine thought it was total nonsense written by Damien. She ordered the letter burned, but that only made everyone turn against her. As an illegitimate child, they forced her to give back the Duchess's heirloom. Only then did she remember the strange thing that happened to her as a kid. One day, her lady slipped a pair of weird earrings onto her. The girl's hair turned pink right then, like it was cursed or something. The nanny said the item couldn't be lost, then swore to protect it herself. Leah sent a letter to BETRAYAL to question the nanny, but the rumors blew up everywhere. Those pink locks of hers were the proof everyone needed. She was an illegitimate brat. Marcel loomed over her, snarling, "You stole this and used lies to marry me!" It looked like everything was hopeless. Leah's noble family was nothing but a lie. The lady was accused of stealing the family relic. People said an illegitimate kid could never sit on the Empress's throne. Ever since she became a foreigner, Leah fought desperately to hold on to her status. But misfortune found her against her will, and that's when her downfall started. When the hair coloring was done, my lady asked if the nanny could keep dyeing her hair. Clearly, Pamela wasn't planning on retiring. She wanted to stick around forever. It was already pretty late, so the nanny tucked my lady into bed. Eliana noticed her ladyship acting like a bloodsucker. She couldn't sleep, so after the nanny left, she began wandering the room. If that family heirloom had been returned on time, there wouldn't have been talk of dethroning her. Beneath the moonlight, Eliana thought about where Pamela could have hidden the device. But first, she had to deal with Pamela. First off, my lady decided to check in with Isabella to see how things were going. The next morning, the heroine peeked into her sister's room for the first time. She noticed Isabella's room was actually luxury level fancy. Since it was a private conversation, my lady ordered everyone nearby to be watched. She personally asked Emily to make sure no one overheard. Isabella said the Marchioness Alves had this blank stare. Now Milady was dead sure he'd fallen for Ileana. Finally, it was Leah's turn to ask for help. So she wanted to know how her sister planned to kick the nanny out. Yanking out a pen, Isabella claimed she had a solid plan. Eliana froze when she spotted Demian's feather pen in her hand. The older sister figured she'd smooth things out after her brother left. But the heroine wanted something heavier to get rid of the nanny. Truth was, grabbing the father's stuff was a pain, and the Duke's daughter just barely snatched the pen from her brother. Then Miss Rosano dropped the bomb about the stolen item from their mother. She said it was earrings with black obsidian and a magical tool. So the bold older sister decided to raid the nanny's room, but worried the nanny had already sold it all. Still, Leah knew Pamela would never risk her own life. After a few more minutes of talk, the main character slipped out of her sister's room. Suddenly, the evil nanny popped out of nowhere and clamped her hand on the girl's wrist. Turns out, Milady had been hunting for the Duke, and Pamela offered to tag along. Elena pushed through her emotions and stepped into his office. She still couldn't wrap her head around being back there. Standing face to face with her fear, her terrifying memories came crashing back. Leah's nerves were fraying. Sweat was dripping from her face, hitting the floor like drums. Rumors about Marquis Alves's son popping the question to the girl had reached the master. Strict Dimitri Rosano assumed his daughter seduced the guy with some sketchy moves. Stumbling over her words, Elena pleaded her case, desperate to change his mind. But when the furious father heard the lies, he slammed his fist down on the table. Scared, Leah tried to explain. They just danced. Pamela said the girl was acting up, and the father just snapped. It felt like a nightmare. But Pamela suddenly declared, "She needs a lesson." Elena froze, stunned by her loyal nanny's words. The dirty old hag lunged at her, tying her up like a criminal. Elena fought to break free, but Pamela raised a hand, ready to strike. Right in front of her dad, Pamela slapped her and bound her hands. To add insult to injury, Dimitri grabbed the whip. No pity in his eyes, none at all. He was about to teach that helpless kid a lesson in talking to the master of the house. Isabella was fuming, trying to force her way into the study. The butler tried to stop her, but the lady barreled right past him. When she reached the door, she froze, couldn't even breathe. A lump formed in her throat. She heard her sister begging for forgiveness. The butler's face was grim. He said the master was disciplining Lady Elian. Isabella was stunned. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. This wasn't discipline, this was torture. She knew exactly what her father's discipline meant. She'd been lashed with a cane as a kid, but the sound now was different, thicker, heavier. The tool was solid, unyielding. The whiplashes were brutal. The girl could barely breathe. Her body was mangled. He was doing this to stop her from tempting men, from tarnishing a duke's daughter's honor. Isabella heard every word. This was her fault. In a panic, she lunged for the door, but a man behind her caught her arm. Elena Rosano told her to let it go. It hit her. Her sister had already been tortured this bad. For Isabella, it was a shock her brother knew everything, but just stood by. Seething with rage, Isabella screamed, "Eliana was your own flesh and blood!" But Demian just sighed and said, "It's about time you learned the truth." He whispered in her ear, "We weren't twins, and Eliana wasn't even your sister." Lady Rosano froze mid-step, eyes wide, trying to wrap her head around it. The Duke's son was right. They only had the same eye color. Either way, it felt wrong to Isabella, but she couldn't do a damn thing. Her brother had told her to keep her nose out. He didn't want their father touching her. It crushed Lady Rosano so hard, tears spilled over her cheeks. The young man barked at the butler to take the girl to her room and lock down the hallway. After years of hellish upbringing, Lady Rosano was finally free. The girl was mangled beyond recognition. Couldn't stand up. Maids scrambled to help. Their lady needed care immediately, so the girls ran to fetch the physician. Except Pamela snapped, screaming, "She was my mistress!" She was determined to handle the treatment herself and ordered the girls to stay out of it. So no one could bother her. The nanny threw every little brat out of the room. You couldn't fool genetics. She saw the vulgar nature in the lady. The woman figured that's why Marquis Alvis kept writing about how he couldn't forget that night. But Eliana's body showed no marks from the night they spent together. Pamela guessed the lady gave Marquis a kiss with those pretty lips of hers. The Duke loved his daughter so much, he'd already prepared a brilliant remedy for her today. But today, the nanny decided to skip treatment entirely to punish the lady for her arrogant attitude, left the poor girl bleeding out, all alone, and vanished. When Eliana realized her patience had finally snapped, she tried to bolt from the room, but just then she spotted her father's whip in his hand, and her body went numb. Lady's thoughts scattered. She'd never learned how to handle the pain. Even though the heroine never became Empress of Zakador, the situation hadn't changed. When a scream echoed from outside, the maid shoved the door open. When Pamela spotted the unwelcome guests, she started screaming they had no business being here. Lady Isabella had a different opinion. Desperate and without hesitation, Lady Isabella sprinted to the nanny and slapped her hard to shut her up. The first hit was immediately followed by a second, sending the reeling woman crashing to the ground. Furious, Isabella couldn't even stand the sight of the creature, so she hit her again. At that moment, a maid approached Eliana's body, and Lady Isabella immediately remembered her sister. Determined to help the poor girl, they began carefully examining her. Not an inch of Lee's body was untouched. Everything was severely damaged. When the aunt saw the lady hadn't received treatment, she vowed to take care of it. When Lady Isabella heard this, her body slowly filled with hatred toward the nanny. The lack of treatment was a complete shock to her, because that ugly nanny put the girl to bed in that condition. Isabella began beating her senseless. Protecting her sister, Lady Isabella didn't hold back. She bashed Pamela's head against the floor. That old witch got every bit she deserved for what her dirty little hands had done. Once Isabella finished punishing her, she ordered the old hag removed. Meanwhile, the maid was tending to the injured girl's wounds. Eliana's wounds were too deep. Every touch sent pain through her. Lady Emma handed the salve to Amma and asked her to apply it to her sister's cuts. Amma, experienced in this, instantly recognized it as Elazam. She said the salve numbs the pain and leaves no scars. As agony coursed through her body, Eliana strained with all her fading strength to beg her father for forgiveness. The nanny insisted the girl's eyes held no regret, so she told him to hit harder. The father hoped he'd never have to whip his daughter again. Writhing in pain, the poor girl stared at her father without blinking. She pleaded for him to stop, but the thick whip came flying straight at her. At that moment, the girl's eyes snapped open. She realized it had all been a dream. The maid saw the lady finally wake up and sit up, but her strength was gone, and the heavy days in her head pulled her back down. Terrified, the maid sprinted to her side, voice trembling, and tried to snap her into focus. Eliana fretted and begged Lady Emma to lie back down. Surprisingly, the pain died away, and her wounds were properly treated after all. Eliana looked at her hands and realized the nanny wouldn't have bandaged them like this. The maid explained that Emma, the family doctor, had done it. Turns out Isabella called Emma, and she called this amazing maid. The girl said the nanny didn't even take care of the mistress after those terrible injuries. Eliana was really grateful for the help, and Lavender helped her get up. Eliana noticed the maid was sharp and had a steady hand, so Leah asked her to get Isabella and Demian right away. Milady gathered her sister and brother and reminded them of what happened to her yesterday. Last night, the girl almost died because the nanny didn't treat her wounds, but their dad trusted that old hag. Isabella was beyond angry when she heard the sister wanted to let that old witch back in. The girl thought it was crazy, but Demian just told her to keep it down. Demian was fed up with Eliana turning the house upside down. Either way, Leah hoped her brother would talk to their dad. He trusted him more. Then Demian realized his sister didn't get it. He told her to remember she'd never marry the guy she wanted. Demian figured the girl had forgotten, so he decided to bring it up again. It was pretty dumb of the heroine to waste her energy on a nanny. Damian stepped in. Ignoring the Duke's daughter's care was a no-no. As for his sister, he told her to snap out of it and get control. He'd always been that way, spewing trash and refusing to call Liana his sister. Back in their childhood, Damian claimed Eliana was the firstborn. The cheerful kid wanted him to call her sister, but something shifted. His face had totally changed. It hit the heroine. Damian had known all along she was a bastard kid. He'd been icy toward her ever since he realized they weren't twins. Soon came a crucial day. Eliana couldn't find a sitter for the kid. Lavonda mentioned Pamela wasn't feeling well, napping in her room. The housewife slipped, fell down the stairs, and broke her right leg. The head maid freaked, dropped a box, smacked the nanny's left leg. Leah caught on. There was a secret rivalry between the nanny and the head maid. It was weird that the maid was carrying heavy stuff, something a strong servant should handle. Figuring the nanny hadn't slept well because of the pain, Leah told the girl to fetch some sleep aids. At the event, the heroine ran into Lady Hine, who was happy to see her. They told Eliane that Lady Hine had gotten an apology note. She said she showed up for tea even with her health problems. That's where the important gossip swapped hands, like in a gentleman's club. The whole Miss Rosano transformation drama died down faster than anyone expected. All because some big shot spoke up at the club meeting. Flint didn't think they should have butted in on Miss Rosano's private business. After that, no one could get a word out. The conversation suddenly turned to nymphs, where one lady's aunt claimed to have seen barbarians. But the ladies agreed you can't step into sacred ground without believing in the divine. Then, Eliana guessed the Sharai must have been in touch with the Holy See. The Sharai, branded as barbarians, were actually nomads roaming the continent. Rumors swirled that Britain Island was hiding a bunch of those barbarians. The lady said it was because Zakador insisted the island of Britain was their territory. The girls even wanted to send their army in and ban them from stepping foot on those lands. But Elena declared the island of Britain was a sacred site where no wars could be fought. According to the Holy Scriptures, it was a sanctuary where the elves once lived. All the temples on the continent were off limits and protected, and they were run by the neutral, independent city-state, the Holy See of Nymphs. Lady thought it was dumb to just hand the island of Britain over to nymphs like that, but Lady Haynes screamed it couldn't happen, that the country had to stay a country. She said the land belonged to the BETRAYAL Empire. Elena thought Hayne was just a hot-headed kid who couldn't control her temper, but the talk of war and borders made her eyes blaze with sudden resolve. Out of nowhere, a lady in the middle of the conversation yanked the heroine off with her. Normally, the lady would have ducked into the garden with that woman to avoid the drama. But now, relying on old habits was too risky. The heroine had to dig up secrets by diving headfirst into high society. When Leah was about to leave, Lady Hayne suddenly caught up to her. Lady Hayne handed her an envelope, and Elena slowly started opening it. Turns out, the heroine had been invited to Veronica Haynes' horseback riding event. Surprisingly, Miss Rosano said she wanted to see their family's famous horse. They just brought it to the capital, so Veronica promised to wait for the meeting. Elena had never attended a horseback riding event before, but now it seemed like it was time to try a new hobby. That day, the girl met her sister to discuss the unfolding events. Isabella found nothing, and in her opinion, the items had already been stolen. In that case, her father wouldn't have left Leah alone and would have cut her head off. However, the sister insisted that their father knew nothing about it. She quickly glanced at everything and mentioned the earrings, but the father didn't react at all. The heroine couldn't understand how her dad didn't know about the family heirloom. To her surprise, her sister revealed that it wasn't the Marcus family's heirloom at all. The girl insisted it was true, because it was with her. To prove it, she had the maid bring a golden box. Inside was a magical artifact called Goldstein that neutralizes poison. Rumors said even if you poured poisoned tea into it, nothing would happen. Mother gave it to my lady in case someone tried to poison her. That cup was the only family heirloom Mother took. That was predictable, considering her obsession with collecting. If only Elaine had the cup, there wouldn't have been the horror of the poisoning and miscarriage. Now she bitterly realized she was a complete stranger in that mansion. Isabella remembered her mother went to Bendos Beach when she heard the mollusk was up for auction. The lady didn't give Elaine an artifact that could hide the fact she was a love child. Young Rosano knew it was supposed to be a vacation, but it was really an auction visit. Even though she wasn't her biological daughter, she could feel her love. The last time Mother asked me to remember her every time Leah drinks her tea. Soon, everyone gathered at the manor's pasture for a horse event. My lady was thrilled by the famous horse Heasy. Her mane was incredible. The girl was totally smitten with how amazing it looked and wanted to stroke the horse. But since the horse could kick, Lady Haynes stopped her on the spot. She said the only person Hesi ever stayed calm around was the stable hand, but His Majesty the Crown Prince would surely tame her in a heartbeat. Lady Rosano was slightly late to the meeting because of the banquet, but she still made it. But the second she saw her face, it was obvious the girl was seriously pissed today. The wind outside was wild enough to steal women's hats without a second thought. The maid fretted over her mistress and asked if she was getting cold. The wind was definitely strong, but nothing compared to Rinskin. That place had seriously stunning views. A gust so powerful it snapped the ribbon off her hat and sent it flying in seconds. Didn't faze the girl at all. She was still stoked about the wind. Flint Howard's reflexes saved the day. He caught the red satin ribbon mid-air. The man approached Lady and said the item was hers. Elena was definitely grateful this time and remembered his kindness for sure. But when he opened his hand, he realized the ribbon was really crumpled. The Archduke apologized along the way for messing up her stuff again. Lady admitted she felt terrible for showing off her worst side. But Flint didn't think that way. He had completely different thoughts. Elena burst out laughing when she heard that. But the man had no idea what she was talking about. To her, it was clear Flint wasn't interested in anything since he didn't react at all. She decided to check if the man knew about her run-in with the Marquis's son. Howard figured it was a solid idea to find a decent guy to marry. But the truth was, her dad had already picked a groom for Elena. Everyone thought her dad was totally in love with her. But in reality, Lady was his puppet. Standing before the heroine was the guy who killed her dad and wiped out her family. That future was pulling Elena with an unbearable force. She said her husband would gain an ally in the Rosano Duchy, and she'd become his trophy. But Flint thought no sane guy would ever consider his wife a trophy. He had no plans to get married. But the lady heard the crown prince was trying to fix him up. Flint's face was practically screaming. He wanted to ask where she'd gotten that information. In high society, the walls had eyes and ears. If that's the case, Mr. Howard revealed he'd turned down His Highness Harris's betrothal proposal. That shocked Eliana, prompting her to ask about her own proposal. Lady Eliana allowed the idea that she might make a suitable bride for him. She hated being belittled, but considered it necessary in such situations. A spark passed between them in that moment. Sir promised her a special exemption. If Howard's heart quivered even a little, Miss Rosano let him take the red ribbon. Frankly, he hated mixing marriage with politics. But Eliana wasn't offering a marriage of convenience, and she never thought he'd interpret her words that way. Lowering her head, Lady Elena asked the Archduke to bury all of today's events in that ribbon and forget. Then the heroine barked for a maid. Miss Hayne had been waiting long enough. Mr. Flint left alone, not even getting a farewell. By then, in the Harris estate, he ran into a stubborn horse and took a header. Veronica Hayne immediately apologized, but she shouldn't have. At that point, Elena had already arrived and couldn't even bear to listen to what the Crown Prince was saying. She didn't get why he felt the need to say things that clearly made her uncomfortable. Right then, Lady Elena felt a rough tongue on her cheek. The wild horse had just licked her. It was a dangerous move, so everyone around her instantly rushed to her defense. But in that moment, she actually sensed something genuine and kind right next to her. Feeling an instant bond, Elena reached out and actually tamed the horse. People couldn't believe their eyes. Hesse was known as the wildest mare in the region. Hesse was a stunning dark horse, and Leah even praised her striking coat. Even Lady Hayne was amazed by her kindness. The horse was genuinely gentle. The estate's strongest men hadn't been able to handle Hesse at all, but Elena was certain someone like Veronica could have tamed Hesse. Watching this with envy, Lord Biantek got furious and tried again. But the second he got near the horse, she kicked him hard and snorted defiantly. Elena had a pure soul and a gentle heart. She knew the power of simple, genuine love. You could see the light in her eyes, the kind of kindness that felt real. Looking at the beautiful woman, Flint saw her in an entirely new light for the first time. Suddenly, Harris called out to his brother and told them they should have left already. The gentleman waved his handkerchief, gripping it tight in his hands, like it was his last hope. That day, Eliana didn't even get to ride, all because of Hesse. Lady Veronica told her to mount the horse, said she'd ace it, no problem. The catch? Laya didn't want His Highness to despise her. After all, she was a duke's daughter. Any such move could be seen as provocation. In high society, you had to watch what you did. Even the little things. Miss Hayne couldn't keep quiet about it anymore, but Eliana told her not to apologize. Veronica was over the moon when the lady suggested she go talk to the noble heir prince. Laya hadn't even said goodbye yet when the girl took off ahead. Lady Hayne forgot to grab the tea invitation and dashed off in a hurry. With no other choice, the heroine sent her a letter. Out of nowhere, Flint Howard suddenly approached the lady. The girl bowed her head, apologized, but Sir asked her to look him in the eye. Luckily, her big hat let Eliana glance at him from under the brim. The guy was clearly upset, but apologized for misreading her feelings. He promised to keep safe what Lady gave him, and vowed to never forget today's event. After a moment's thought, the girl grew curious why he'd changed his mind. But Flint wasn't ready to answer until he mustered the courage. Leah heard him speak like a prince. They weren't just regular friends. To make amends, the Archduke offered to deliver an invitation to Miss Hayne. Snatching back the letter, Lady said she couldn't use him as a messenger. She only agreed because she couldn't send a letter from home. Her father's fault. Besides, Eliana had something else to pass along to her friend. She asked him to tell Veronica to stop being so formal with her. At her words, the man was a bit taken aback. But their meeting ended there. When the heroine returned home, the palace was in an uproar. Spotting her, the maid rushed over worriedly. She said someone stole Lady Isabella's jewels, and she demanded the servants' rooms be searched. Emily told me Goldshin vanished too, but I had no clue what it was all about. The girl thought it was creative how Goldshin got stolen during that botched Duchess heist, but she knew her mom was still out of the house. To kick the nanny out, the mistress had to see the whole mess start to finish. Eliana trusted Isabella had everything under control. Worst time possible, Leah heard the family knights showing up. A maid burst in, saying they'd start with the servants' rooms, then their own. The knights trashed everything just to look innocent. Since the knights were involved, Leah knew Goldstein was valuable. Timing was terrible. Damian wasn't even here. If they found anything in the servants' rooms, they wouldn't have to dig through their own. Suddenly, the fearless lady spoke to Sir Sinar. He froze for a second. Eliana told him to check the nanny's room. It was closest. When the heroine was Zakador's heir princess, Pamela followed her. The nanny was her dad's puppet, but Eliana's ex-husband exposed her. Nearly got her killed. Then the lady handed Pamela the jewels and forced her to run off. She had no clue she'd regret it until her dying day. Now, she was going to make Pamela pay for everything. The nanny arrived just in time and froze at the chaos unfolding. As the Duke's daughter's head nanny, she roared that no one dared barge into her room. Suddenly, Eliana burst in with news. A thief had broken into the mansion. She said he stole Isabella's jewels and the gifts from her mom. Pretending to care, Pamela asked if the lady's belongings were safe. But Eliana just sighed heavily. She had no clue. The truth? Villainous? Pamela had been hiding them all along. It hit so hard the nanny froze, breaking into a nervous sweat. The lady had changed. Anyone could see it. Pamela spent years with the girl, knew her inside out. Young Miss Rosano always obeyed her, but Pamela crossed the line. But to Pamela, none of it mattered now. She hadn't stolen a thing. The knights weren't ordered to leave, but the nanny was ready to wait for them to go. She intended to report everything to the Duke and address the mistress's behavior. Out of the blue, the knight shouted that the golden goblet had been found and asked for confirmation. Isabel bolted into the room to make sure they'd found it. Within seconds, the girl's expression made it clear she recognized her Goldstein. The goblet found in the chest was seized, and the nanny was taken into custody immediately. Other of Isabel's valuables were discovered in the chest. This really pissed Lady off, so she immediately slapped the thief. Pamela kept insisting it was a misunderstanding, and she hadn't stolen anything. The nanny blamed Milla for everything, claiming she'd broken her leg on purpose. But the maid demanded the shameless nanny finally own up to her guilt. Shocked, Pamela awkwardly reached toward Lady Lee, hoping she believed her. Looking at all the stolen goods, Elaine breathed a sigh of relief and said the nanny hadn't taken anything from her. Lady didn't want to check her like this, but had no choice. When Pamela learned of the betrayal, she lost her temper and began shouting. But according to Isabella, the nanny was just supposed to take care of the girl. In her rage, Lady accused the nanny of abandoning her sister to die after the beatings. When Pamela was hit by a wave of accusations, she screamed as hard as she could. Not understanding why Lady treated her that way made the woman suffer. The frenzied woman insisted no one could throw her out because she knew the secret. At that moment, Eliana burned with excitement. She knew exactly what the secret was. Without thinking, Lady grabbed the nanny by the throat to silence her. The woman stared in horror, eyes wide as if trying to guess what would happen next. Pamela was the first to claim what belonged to the heroine. Even as a child, stealing her magical tool condemned the girl to a terrible death. Eliana had to hand the nanny over to her husband to be torn apart, so she wouldn't regret it as much. Squeezing with all her might, young Miss Rosano pressed harder on the nanny's frail neck. Air was running out, and suddenly, Pamela bit the aggressor's hand. In pain, Lady fell to the floor and had to let go of the woman. The heroine refused to let the knights bind the criminal and vowed to decide her fate herself. Pamela might have gotten forgiveness if she truly repented for her sins. Eliana ordered her right wrist cut off. Nanny was a shameless hussy. The butler froze at the shock, but he didn't dare argue with his mistress. Fear and terror flashed in Pamela's eyes. She was about to suffer. At the scream, Lord Demian strode in, looked like a god. The nanny screamed she was framed, but Demian didn't even glance back, not even as she begged for mercy. He picked up his severed wrist from the floor, finally figured out where it went. The Duke's son suddenly flung a pouch. Eliana's stuff was stolen too! The pouch glowed, revealing a beautiful ancient chest inside. But Lady Elena never saw Ellis as hers. The chest belonged to their father. Demian just wanted to make sure his sister approved of the punishment. As the older sister, Elena had every right to decide. The boy's expression darkened. "You knew our secret, Nanny," he ordered. Cut off Pamela's wrist and her tongue. For biting the hand that fed her, Demian wanted to cut out her tongue. Scared out of her mind, the nanny couldn't let them treat her like this or disgrace the Duke. When Demian heard she was about to spill the secret, he was blown away with rage. Grabbing the old hag by the wrist, the master declared she'd lose her wrist and be tossed out. Pamela's actions were supposed to be a lesson for everyone. As promised, the sharp axe struck her hand hard, and blood sprayed everywhere. Eliana watched, silent. only hearing the blood-curdling scream. Deep down, Lady Eliana took a sadistic pleasure in this punishment. Horrible to watch, but the nanny really did lose her tongue. At the sight of blood, Isabel felt faint and passed out. Worried maids rushed to her aid immediately. Only then did Demian realize he should have sent the sisters away first. But surprisingly, Eliana suddenly sprang into action and headed toward the nanny. Assuming Pamela was dead, Lady Elena gave her a nudge with her foot. According to Jonathan, she had a pulse. After all, they just cut out her tongue. Leah ordered Mila to take the nanny to the room and treat the wounds. Before leaving, she also gave orders to remove all body parts that were a gruesome sight. Meanwhile, Flint spent the whole day picking out a bride. It was a boring task, so Harris entertained himself with wine and suggested the brother just accept their father's choice. Their father valued Flint, and he cherished their bond. If it weren't for the Archduke, Harris wouldn't even be there. He always told their father the truth. Honestly, Lord Bientek really treated his brother like a friend. In return, Flint would never betray their bond and stayed loyal to his brother till the end of his days. Harris and Flint differed not just in looks, but in the twists of their fates. They were complete opposites in everything, except the blood they shared. Harris was the Empire's biggest joy since the day he was born. The old emperor couldn't wait to hand over most of his power to his favorite kid. Even with all his early privileges, Harris's charm always beat out his arrogance. That pristine path to the throne suddenly turned into a minefield. It all went sideways the moment the Bientek Empire delegation rolled into Rinskin. That day, every single person Harris brought with him got wiped out. Harris would have met the same end if not for Flint Howard, who dropped in from nowhere. Without Harris, chaos would have broken loose. They needed to regroup fast. He begged Flint to head north. Everyone insisted he stay far from Rinskin. According to Howard, the whole country was on alert. War was a real possibility. Alexander was hellbent on killing Lord Bientek. Zakador was priming for war. When Harris heard this, he lost it. Why hadn't Bientek's empire been briefed earlier? But Flint shot back. Had his own country ever asked about the Howards stuck as hostages? Sir Howard finally let his fury loose. They wanted to play it smart. Bientek's empire left them hanging. They figured Alexander summoned the heir prince for revenge. The master trained his sword arm raw and devoured every book in sight. Now the people were betting their lives on his call. Flint said Zakador was their enemy. He pretended not to hear a word they said. If not for their loyalty to the master, Harris would have been 6 feet under. He had to find ways to defend himself, and he learned the Duke had found a new heir. He couldn't let himself be disgraced, so Harris decided to return in glory. In return, he swore on his blood to bestow titles and honor upon Flint and his people for saving the heir prince. Soldiers in black masks and cloaks entered the war between Bianteka and Zakador. They hid their identities, but they turned the tide of battle when Bianteka was in danger. Per the plan, Side Adele led the captives out, while the rest rescued the Empire's people. The Dark Knights became heroes of folk tales, saving civilians from harm. But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't close the gap in military strength. As defense minister, Rastil Waldheim arrived in person to end the war, but Flint Howard brutally cut off his head. At that moment, Harris revealed himself, removing his mask and holding up the enemy general's head. Bianteka's morale soared with the heir prince's return, the one they thought was dead. In the end, Harris returned home victorious, introducing his father to his savior, Flint Howard. He asked his father to recognize Flint as an archduke so they could stay together forever. Emperor Leopold warmly welcomed the new Howard archduke. They officially announced Flint was Maximilian Howard's heir and loaded him with wealth. The new archduke was trusted with ancestral valor to protect the empire. Despite becoming a big shot, they kept shipping him off to the north. The prince's duty was to get the northern war hero to come to the capital, but by now, Flint had made peace with it. Harry's felt bad for the capital's elite ladies trying to win his heart. Adele Evans burst in with a mountain of paperwork and demanded the prince marry her. Harry suggested she marry Flint instead. It sounded nuts. Lady Adele's goal was a cute guy she planned to drag up north. Flint asked for her take on the report that Shirai found new land. The northern nobles dared to think they were pulling back from the north, eyeing Zakador. Harry's tuned out the debate about moving troops to the border and left. Alone with Lord Harry's, Adele spilled her fears about the emperor. She worried he was dead set on marrying Flint off. Howard told her to hit the road if she wanted to talk about marriage. That made the Countess furious, and she told him he needed to start a family to get the seal back. Flint could have had his way and called off the engagement, but he was worried about the girl. Adele didn't see it as a problem. After all, the Archduke's bride would have a title. The late Archduke left a will demanding the seal be recovered at any cost. According to the Countess, the late Archduchess begged until her last breath to return to Bianteka and reclaim the seal. To be honest, Flint only knew it was a relic. He had no idea how valuable it actually was. In a fit of anger, Adele declared the seal must return home with the crown prince. But Flint knew the emperor was using this to test his sincerity. His Majesty ordered the Countess to consider what lay behind the emperor's promise. Adele recalled the emperor had vowed to honor Crown Prince Alphonse at his coronation. and upon returning home, His Highness reiterated that promise. The woman Flint had been seeing recently, no longer an option. On a beautiful summer day, Elena met the lady in the garden. The woman held a box with a lovely pearl inside. Your mother definitely had great taste, it was obvious. Suddenly, she decided to find out about the commotion that happened while she was away. Eliana was ready to tell her, and asked how they should handle the nanny. According to Mother, the kids were all over her about kicking her out, especially Damien. He'd never been so angry and cold-blooded before. Hoping her good girl would back down, Mom grabbed Leah's hand. All she wanted was for the girl to leave Pamela alone. But when Mom got a no, she lost it. Couldn't handle the rejection. Turns out, Eliana was from the Rosano family and had Damien's back. Plus, she reminded everyone how that nanny had treated her like crap. Mom was stuck, had no idea what to do. Couldn't just kick the nanny out now. They had to give her a place to stay. And smart move, Leah suggested, taking the nanny under her wing. Only then did she say yes, and Damien did too. Big drama alert. Mom banished her daughter to her room. The heroine finally calmed down. Everything with Pamela was settled. She felt bad, of course, that she couldn't get rid of her. Pamela was a servant from the Duchess's family estate, so it all had to play out in front of her. Elena just wanted the Duchess to personally see that nanny's greedy act. She didn't even notice when Lavanda sidled up and offered tea. The tea smelled amazing, like flowers or herbs or something. The person who handed it over even spoke in the same tone. Suddenly, Leah paused, thought of something, and asked for a silver wand. As soon as the wand was in her hand, my lady started stirring the sugar with it. The tea stayed the same, just hot steam rose from it. With relief, Elena decided the Duchess wasn't trying to kill her. When Mila entered the room, the heroine barked at the other maids to leave. Once they were gone, Mila spilled everything to the mistress, but she noticed this place didn't take any letters of request. Either way, my lady had enough info to work with. She thanked the maid and said she wanted to take care of the rest on her own. Mila only hinted to her older daughter about a specific place, and nothing else. Eliana was also curious who got the mail addressed to her first. Speaking of letters, there was a decent amount stacked up, so the maid handed Lady all the mail sent to her. Tom used to collect and sort the mail by name. Then the servants delivered the letters to their owners. Leah remembered Isabella got a ton of letters after the wedding rumors died down, but she wasn't into the debut scenes since guys were after the dukedom. The heroine didn't get any letters, except a proposal from Marquis Alvis's son. Someone must have been grabbing her mail even after Pamela left. Going through stacks from the same sender, Leah spotted a mysterious letter. A white envelope had a wolf seal and the name Howard. This letter was a solid bait for her. She had to put it back first, but Lady couldn't wait to check it out. Eliana took the letters to her room and scribbled something on Howard's letter. After that, she ordered Mila to gather the letters and take them back. As darkness fell, it was time to read the mysterious letter hidden in the locker. Eliana opened the envelope and tried to steady herself before reading it. The letter said Flint Howard wanted her to attend a banquet in the capital. Lady read every word carefully, and by the end, her hands were trembling. Realizing the letter wasn't a love note, everything inside her collapsed. She couldn't figure out why someone would use such nice paper for an invitation. She thought the Archduke was interested in her, but Lady jumped to conclusions. On the day their fates intertwined through the ribbon, Lee's marriage comment was an impulse, but Miss Rosano didn't regret anything. Flint was her only choice now, and she wasn't about to wait for him to find the courage to respond. Eliana needed a bold move to push past her fear. Every time something happened, it was still hard for her to leave. No one would just let her do that. Those outfits Pamela bought were a disaster, so Lady needed a tailor. Leah suddenly ordered the driver to stop the carriage. They hadn't reached Brillanti yet, but the lady wanted to make a quick stop there. She couldn't show up empty-handed after all. The Astor shop warmly welcomed the treasured guest at the door. Thinking Lady wanted to check out the greenhouse, the shop owner proudly showed off her flowers. Among the store's many arrangements, Eliana demanded a dark blue aster. The girl thought she had the wrong address, but the sign outside read dark blue aster. The lady said the maids weren't supposed to find out. She led Lady to a room where the greenhouses were kept. Among thick clusters of bush roses, the shop owner found a suspicious rope. She yanked it hard, and a soft bell chimed. At that moment, a man in a hooded cloak slipped into the greenhouse, hiding his face. The mysterious hooded stranger told Lady to follow him. Meanwhile, the maids calmly sipped tea, waiting for the lady's return. But all of a sudden, Lavender jumped up and declared they should have followed the lady. Girl insisted something might have happened to her. She said there could have been a guy there. Lavender begged her friend to stand up, but a stranger cut her off. Hot guy with a flower bouquet said the staff would handle the lady. His stunning looks practically blinded the spellbound servants. He also offered to craft floral crowns for them. He said with confidence they'd make Miss Lavender's fingers look stunning. Meanwhile, a dark-clothed employee led her to the greenhouse's far corner. Elena ended up in a little room, where they offered her a seat at a garden table. She figured out the stranger was from Zakador by his accent. But Lady Elena insisted common folk from the BETRAYAL Empire wouldn't even see him, so she knew the guy was no ordinary man. From what Lee knew, Astra wasn't just any old guild. Lady Elena was ready to pay full price to have it found for her. All she really wanted was a magical tool to change hair color. Sir had never heard of an artifact working by holding it to your ear, but the girl had only used it like that, so Sir figured she had some magical talent. Turns out she didn't have the gift, so he asked her to describe the item. She sketched the artifact from memory and gave a full description. Being a pro at this, Sir was determined to find it ASAP. Before leaving, he mentioned that in the language of flowers, a dark blue aster meant trust. But before he left, Elena wanted to know his name. Instead of answering, the mysterious young man just fell silent. The girl figured he didn't want to say and sulked away. But right then, the heroine heard the name Austin and couldn't believe her ears. The mysterious figure vanished instantly, and Elena kept thinking it was a guy. Now she finally knew. The head of Asta Guild was a woman. As she processed everything, she suddenly heard someone calling her. Flint, flustered, was trimming roses, and definitely didn't expect to see Her Highness there. Eliana was a bit surprised to see him under these circumstances. She suggested skipping the formal stuff, like always. Eliana was happy the Archduke recognized her from behind. Frankly, Flint thought he could pick her out from 1,000. She was kind of enchanted, didn't expect to hear that. Leah noticed he'd been trimming flowers, and guessed he was into them. His mom was into flower arrangements and tending the garden. Turns out the woman did all that meticulous work despite her high status. She had steady hands, but Flint didn't inherit her skill. Look at how he cut the flowers. Leah felt bad for the poor flowers and gently touched his hand. She snatched the shears and was about to show him the right way. The way she handled the flower was pure magic. So gentle, so precise. Eliana spotted a huge rose and said he was really lucky. Blooms that big are rare, but in Flint's hands, it looked tiny. Before leaving, the heroine ordered 3 gift bouquets of the cutest flowers. After that, she said goodbye. She had other business to take care of, but Howard stopped her right away and asked if she'd gotten the invitation. That question hit Lady Rosano like a hammer, shattering the silence. Flint was stunned when he heard Leah hadn't received anything. He promised to send the letter again, but the girl insisted it wouldn't reach her. Miss Rosano never received letters from men. That was the problem. Because of that, the Gentlemen's Club labeled her a snob. Flint figured the Duke of Rosano didn't want to lose his precious daughter over him. Lady Rosano wanted to know if Sir Howard feared the Duke. She needed a man who'd kiss her without hesitation, right in front of her father. If the Archduke didn't have that guts, Elena vowed to snatch the flower and walk out. A lump in his throat kept Flint from speaking. He stood silent. After a beat, he said, "I don't fear anyone, except the Emperor." That answer wasn't enough. Leah lost it and demanded a clearer answer. Flint said even the Emperor couldn't step in on his relationship with his future wife. A sudden sparkle lit up her eyes. Something she'd never had before. That answer pleased her so much, she hid behind her hat. Flustered, Eliana cut the conversation short and left Flint hanging, no response given. At that moment, Howard realized Adele was right. By then, Astina had returned to say Rinskin had reached out to her. She said the guild leader wanted a status check on the Archduke's condition. Not much time left. Astina was about to take the guild leader position any day now. On the way, she mentioned that lady instantly knew she was from Zakador. Flint froze. He hadn't expected Leah to approach the guild. Since Howard wasn't a guild member anymore, Astina couldn't spread the word. Suddenly, a guy burst in shouting, "The scandalous guest has arrived!" The guy could have handled it himself, but started dragging the lady along. That day, the Duke's stunning daughter arrived at the Brilliant Boutique. A lot of people saw her otherworldly beauty for the first time and were totally awestruck. Lady held a stunning bouquet made from the most exquisite flowers. She presented a piece to 3 ladies, and they held their breath at its beauty. They even flustered the cute lady with their intense stares. Hoping they'd handle the outfit, Eliana entrusted them with the responsibility. The VIP room was in another wing, and the butler courteously escorted the lady. Another shopper at the boutique noticed the guest's presence. Upon recognizing Miss Rosano, the stranger rushed over. She bowed and introduced herself as Countess Adele Evans. Based on the name, Eliana figured she was one of Flint Howard's connections. The Countess simply asked Lady to spare her a few minutes. She'd heard the name before, but Miss Rosano was an incredibly elegant woman. Adele even got the impression Lady had spent her whole life mastering etiquette. All Eliana cared about was who'd started talking about it first. Turns out Miss Evans' host had found out, and that was surprising. According to Adele, he always steered clear of talking about women. Eliana never imagined he'd say such things about her. Adele realized Lady wasn't what the aristocrat's lies made her out to be. Refined as she was, Duke Rosano's daughter definitely wasn't a pushover. That convinced the Countess the girl could survive even in the frozen north. Suddenly, she blurted out, "Miss Rosano needs to marry that Archduke." Eliana almost choked on her tea, hearing the endless compliments to the guy. Adele was all in, trying to convince her to marry that handsome war hero, but Leah just shrugged and said they'd only met a couple times. To the Countess, that was enough. You two were made for each other, she insisted. When the heroine shut them down, saying there was nothing between them, the Countess lost it. Miss Rosano's annoyance came out as a plea. Stop putting me on the spot. That crushed Miss Evans. She finally got it. Lady never cared about her boss. Poor guy. Now he'd die alone and forgotten. But Eliana snapped. He'll find his real love someday. Just wait. The girl's mood flipped instantly when she heard the Archduke had to tie the knot now. Turns out it was urgent. Flint had no choice but to marry. The North was all calm and steady, just like Archduke Howard's corner of things. From what the Countess said, nothing was messing with his peace and quiet. Adele snapped that the Emperor had no right to take Archduke Howard's seal. Realizing she'd blabbed too much, Adele clamped a hand over her mouth. Lucky for her, Miss Rosano heard every word. Things just clicked into place for her. You couldn't hide anything from the Duke's daughter. She knew Flint and Adele were the real deal. Their chat was wrapping up. But Adele had one last question before she left. She needed to know, had Lady Rosano really not been interested in Archduke Howard? If so, Eliana wouldn't be wasting time on her. Next time, Lady Rosano wouldn't be so generous with her time. The Emperor yanked Maximilian's Biontech last name and gave him Howard instead. Same day, Maximilian got promoted to Archduke of the North, and they handed him the seal. That seal meant the Emperor officially recognized Howard as North's Archduke. It was also a heartfelt keepsake, and Eliana knew exactly what that meant. Flint probably missed his folks and wanted to hold on to something from his late parent. A maid shyly slipped into Miss Rosano's room and crouched on the floor. Lavanda stared at the mountain of letters, eyes wide with fear and panic. When it came to the letters, she swore up and down she just wanted to sort them. Eliana cut her off cold, splashed tea in her face without letting her finish. The mistress knew Lavanda had snooped through her body during the bath. That cursed girl would have sprinted to her dad the second she saw Lady with a man. With the truth laid bare, Lavanda dropped to her knees, begging for forgiveness. Head bowed, she claimed she followed the Duke's orders, or he'd have killed her. Eliana knew everyone feared her father, but she figured Lavanda was clever. Of course, a scary dad like that had a daughter just like him. Lavanda never thought Lady could kill her faster than her own dad. Tears flooding her face, she swore this was the last time it had ever happened. Quaking at the edge of death, she begged for one more chance. But Leah strolled calm as day to the rope hanging in the center of the room. Yanking it, she growled, "I don't fix people." At that moment, a bell clanged, and the royal servants rushed over. Miss Rosano ordered Lavanda to scram and wait for her next move. The maids dragged the traitor off. Now she was cornered. They told Lavanda to keep her mouth shut about this to her dad, or he'd wipe her off the face of the earth. The mistress waited like a heartless ice queen, listening in silence to her pleas for mercy. When night fell, Astina smoothly zoomed onto the lady's windowsill, but Eliana was more curious than shocked. Quick on her feet, Astina slipped past the guards. No big deal for her. Sure enough, the girl found the earrings, but only one of them. She was confused. It wasn't obsidian, but a sapphire, which couldn't change hair color. And they found it thanks to a lead named Pamela. Old Lady ran the Elazam trade. The moment Leah touched the earring, she felt that weird, familiar vibe. Even with a different stone and no magic, it was definitely hers. Astina caught on. It was a magical artifact, no doubt. To show off something wild, she suddenly snatched it. With a quick move, she pulled the stone out, and poof! Magic happened. Some guild mage was dying to get his hands on that earring, but Astina said no way. So the heroine figured the other earring might be on Kasfira. Astina! She really hoped it wasn't there. She brought Lady something else besides the earring. The mysterious lady told Lady to track down a servant named Billy and show him that item. After that, she leaped from the windowsill, soaring up like she'd grown wings. Then the heroine checked the item, and wow! It wasn't a hairpin. It was a dagger! Shortly after, Harris Biontech dropped the bomb. A royal ball to pick a bride. Flint's gonna pick himself a hot bride, so the invite's open to anyone who wants in. All the girls in the Empire were flipping out, except Ileana, who couldn't stand hearing Howard's name. That guy had the gall to invite her to that bride-picking ball. Meanwhile, a delegation from Zakador rolled in. And man, that made the king seethe. The king lost it and ordered Archduke Howard to go chop their heads off. The prince? He saw every last one of them as traitors. Harris called them out for trying to sell off the Biontech Empire. He was ready to lop off every head in the delegation and settle the score with Zakador. His Majesty wanted to know what those Zakador scumbags had to say. He wanted to team up against the hellish showdown, even with their mutual grudges. Flint got the order to take charge of the combined forces and seize Mulhu. Another war was coming for the Archduke, and Harris couldn't even meet his eyes. But there was no way around it. His Majesty had made up his mind. Flint was wiped out, slumping into a chair from frustration. But war didn't faze him. He'd long been used to living on the razor's edge between life and death. Eliana stopped by the sewing circle and thanked Lady Fleming for her help. The girls were swapping stories about the heir prince's banquet to pick an archducal bride. But Leah just smirked. This wasn't Flint's style. The rumors were right. This banquet was definitely about choosing a bride for the Archduke. Harris said the banquet invite was pointless, and he'd give the date when he was good and ready. The heroine's face went dark just thinking about being invited to that banquet, right in front of the guests. She couldn't stand the idea of the Archduke testing her as a potential bride. Good thing, too. Milady wanted him to realize she had no equal. Meanwhile, Astina confirmed the request was handled. The lady read the letter right away. When she met Eliana, Astina tried to snoop about what was in that letter. Then Miss Rosano revealed he was leaving the capital for a while. But Milady didn't get why someone as busy as him would even mention that. That answer wasn't what the Archduke expected. He wanted more than that. Astina found the earring thanks to Flint. She thought he should have shown it off. But he didn't think it was a good idea. Milady wanted to keep everything under wraps. Still, no reply came back to Flint, even after days. He'd almost convinced himself Miss Rosano was on her dad's side. Then someone told him Countess Evans wanted to see him. But when Flint arrived, Eliana was already at the table. Milady, with quiet beauty, shyly said hello. 3 hours ago, Jane still couldn't believe Milady was dating the Archduke. To be exact, they were partners working together to achieve their goals. Just thinking about how many times they'd met and talked about marriage made Jane's eyes burn with rage. Every time, the maid marveled at how the earrings changed her hair color. Those earrings were incredibly valuable to Miss Rosano. Neither her father nor the Duchess had any idea about the item she'd ended up with. While Flint was brewing tea, he realized he didn't interest the lady at all. By not sending a reply letter, Miss Rosano only slightly showed her disappointment. Now lost and confused, Flint was exactly the guy the lady had always known. Out of nowhere, she said the dance of withering petals never stopped, even as they faded. So she told the Archduke not to worry and go where he needed to go. The charmed heroine believed him, and Flint Howard promised to come back. Isabel's debut day came sooner than expected, with a crowd of guests showing up. Eliana couldn't believe Lady Isabel had just made her debut, and her sister didn't mention the stunning Lady Eliana at all. Their mom was undoubtedly over the moon to have such beautiful daughters. Even though Isabella came from a noble family, she couldn't stand people staring at her all the time. So Demian offered her his hand and promised to be there for her. Leaving her sister behind, the girl took off after her brother right away. Lady Sophia and Lady Violet didn't expect to run into Eliana. It was a joyful reunion. From their conversation, Elena learned that a Zakador delegation had been in Biantek. Miss Rosano said they all had to respect each other. They were children of the same god. In her past life, she wasn't a politics expert, so she couldn't rely on her memories. Eliana remembered seeing a Zakadori guy at the temple. His name was Waldemar. Back in the day, Biantek and Zakador formed an alliance and went to war in Molhe. Flint Howard was Biantek's commander. Prince Waldemar led Zakador's forces. The Zakador prince returned to Biantek with Archduke Howard. As a peace gesture between the two empires, he handed over the remains of the late Archduchess Howard. Then, it hit Eliana all at once. She dropped her glass and her hand. The very war where Flint won was the Sacred War of Molhe. Lady X panicked, apologized to the ladies, and bolted out of there. The girl couldn't spill the beans on her rush. It's a military secret. But it came up too fast, and she thought she'd blanked out. Lady X hadn't even reached the carriage when she barked at the driver to head straight to the temple. No way she was hesitating. She was all in. Her mission, forget all the past failures. The big day finally hit. The Archduke, a total looker, showed up at the banquet. Duke Rosano wasn't about to miss out. He showed up with a smile. Dmitri Rosano smoothly introduced the Archduke to his son Demian and daughter Isabella. Flint scanned the crowd for Eliana. Demian said she couldn't make it. Turns out she was seriously sick. Flint went pale. Sir Howard went off the rails when he heard she was sick. The whole banquet was about picking a bride. But Flint didn't show up the next 2 days. After a flood of complaints from the ladies, Harris burst into his brother's office, yelling. The prince was beyond furious. He'd thrown a whole banquet, and Flint didn't even show. Suddenly, Howard grabbed his hand and said he had a request. The evening before, the maid told them Damien and Isabella had left the manor. Then the lady pulled a black cloak over her head, and accompanied by the maid, opened the secret passage. The young girl hadn't even known the manor had passages like that. One day, Astina let slip about a secret passage in the Rosano Manor. She said the passage let you leave the manor without the knights noticing, so Eliana slipped out through the black passage, dodging the knights. By midnight, Astina was already waiting for her by the manor. Miss Rosano sent Jane back and told her not to let anyone in her room. Flint thought she was really ill, especially since she hadn't left the house at all. He even considered dropping by, but the butler cut in, saying a guest had arrived. A mysterious girl stood at the doorway, face hidden under a black hood. When the guest yanked off the cloak, the light revealed Lady Eliana's pretty face. She wanted to see Flint and stargaze together. The girl hoped the starlight might outshine the shadow of her ignorance. Flint didn't even bother listening to the lectures on his ignorance and dove straight into cleaning up his mess. The Archduke was worried about her after hearing she was seriously ill. Lady said she was feeling better. Plus, she liked his office. The terrace was next room over, so the heroine suggested stepping out for some fresh air. Lady spotted the bright moonlight spilling through the hallway and bolted for the balcony. The sky was studded with stars. Flint used to love watching this view too. Worth noting, this view was stunning even during the day. Elena couldn't tear her eyes from the moonlight, but the Archduke was gazing at a different star. Her wind-blown hair and the glow in her eyes made Leah even more breathtaking. She stretched her hand toward the sky and asked if he wanted to reach for the stars. Tonight, the young girl wanted to tuck a star into Flint's arms. She wrapped her arms around him, and her soft lips brushed his for the first time. Howard didn't have time to process it. By then, he was already trapped by her. When Leah stepped back, the Archduke stood frozen in confusion. Moonlight framed her delicate shoulders, swaddled in a light nightgown, so tender. Flint was totally smitten with her beauty, couldn't tear his eyes off her. Young Miss Rosano was something else. Her lips had him hooked, like magic. She couldn't hold back, yanked him into her bedroom with a wink. But out of nowhere, Flint pulled away, sat back, gave her space. Eliana lost it, screamed at him to wrap his arms around her now. The truth? Sir Howard was a stand-up guy. He didn't do fake romance. It wasn't about him. He just knew Lady Eliana never gave a damn. Leah heard his truth and was ready to lie her way into his arms. She softly touched his shoulder, whispered, "I've loved you forever." For a heartbeat, time stood still, the air between them thick as sin. Out of nowhere, Flint bolted upright, scrambled off the bed like lightning. Midnight was past. He figured he'd walk her home, no big deal. Eliana snarled, "If I return, they'll sell me to Zakador." Dead silence dropped. Howard had zero clue what the hell she meant. Poor thing's eyes welled up, shattered into sobs. The BETRAYAL and Zakador Empires are about to form a marriage alliance, and she's the one getting married. The heroine was in a bad spot, but it was her dad's wish. All she could do was throw herself into the arms of the guy sitting next to her. If Miss Rosano married him, she wouldn't have to go to Zakador. The Emperor demanded Flint get hitched, so Elaine would be stuck in the politics. From what she remembered, he turned down her proposal last time. Worried about her future, the Archduke proposed to the lady. Suddenly, he shoved a blanket in her hands, noticing she was still in her nightgown. Leah said he needed to get used to it. They had to have kids. This made Flint blush. It was hard for him to keep up with her wild imagination. The lady burst out laughing after that, feeling safe. Howard was about to make an official proposal tomorrow, but the lady stopped him. She handed him a package and told him to use it. It was a temple marriage certificate she'd earned through her loyalty. On the way home, Austin said Demian came in through a secret passage. Everything happened too fast, but she figured she should report it right away. The next morning, the heroine was blindsided by a servant calling her to the Duke. Everything was good. Eliana just asked for a small favor. On Miss Rosano's orders, the servant sprinted like the wind, racing to carry out the command. She had to tell Aistine to speed up the plan and give the pin to Billy. With a chance to change her life, Eliana wanted out of there fast. Standing in front of her dad's study door, she took a deep breath. She heard the Duke's voice, stepped in, bracing for the worst. Her dad made her get ready for a visit to the Imperial Palace. When Dmitri met the Emperor, he spilled the beans about the Zakador Empire offering an alliance. They'd hand over their princess, but in exchange, they wanted Rosano's eldest daughter. The Emperor was ready to give up Rosano's gem mine for her. The heroine knew Aistine couldn't pull off the kidnapping if she went to the palace. She refused point blank to go, so the plan wouldn't fall apart. When the Duke heard his daughter was defying him, he lost his cool. For once, Leah begged him to consider her feelings. Smirking, Dmitri declared he was going to drag his daughter off by force. He tried dragging her into that hell again. The reason she wasn't going? She'd already taken a marriage vow. She declared the so-called most worthy bride no longer existed. Meanwhile, Oliver reported Miss Rosano's personal maid had arrived. They wouldn't let the girl in, but she kept demanding to see the Archduke. Flint got curious and stepped outside to meet her. The terrified maid screamed and pleaded. He had to save the mistress. Howard's face went pale when he heard the Duke planned to kill his own daughter. Once the details came in, the Archduke rushed to help immediately. Enraged, Dmitri didn't hold back on the scum who ruined his plans. Mangled, Elena was too injured to move. Even after she fainted, the father didn't stop. He shook her awake. Terrified, Isabella ran over, screaming at her father to stop. The girl threw herself at the father, protecting her stepsister with her body. She knelt without a fight and let her father beat her instead of the sister. But the Duke's rage was unstoppable. He told her to get out of his sight. Watching him torment Lady Emily finally made Isabella snap. Dmitri had worked his whole life to lift his younger daughter up. Now Bella dared to defy him and turn against him. Emily couldn't let it happen, so she grabbed the lady and yanked her aside. Poor Eliana got an even worse beating for trying to brainwash Bella. But as the Duke raised his whip again, a knife plunged into his hand, and the guests stormed in. Flint froze where he stood, eyes wide in disbelief at the horror before him.